Tomorrow would bring a frightened boy with secrets darker than my own, and a dangerous man would follow, showing me exactly what I was meant to protect. But tonight, I was just counting quarters in an empty arcade, the eviction notice burning in my pocket as each coin reminded me how thoroughly I'd failed at 22. Through rain-streaked windows, couples walked by holding hands, heading to lives I'd never afford. Friday night, and here I was again, broke, forgotten, invisible to a world that had already moved on without me. My trembling hands betrayed the fear I tried to bury. 3 days until I'd be homeless. The Street Fighter machine flickered suddenly, symbols replacing the character menu, ancient marks that pulsed with impossible light. Who protects the lost shall find the purpose, the screen whispered in glowing letters that shouldn't exist. Every arcade game went dark at once, then blazed back to life, leaving only that cryptic message burning into my retinas. The air itself seemed to thicken, pressing against my skin like invisible hands trying to tell me something I wasn't ready to understand. The quarter in my hand felt suddenly hot, almost burning, as if responding to whatever force had invaded my machines. Outside, the rain turned to ice against the windows, each drop freezing the moment it touched glass, impossible in July heat. I didn't know then that everything was about to change, that my empty life was about to overflow with purpose I never could have imagined. Chapter 1. The storage room door shouldn't be cracked open like that, especially not when I'm the only one left in the arcade after closing time, but there it is, hanging slightly ajar with darkness spilling out like spilled ink across the checkered floor. My hand trembles as I reach for the handle, the metal cold against my palm, and that's when I hear it, the soft, shallow breathing of something small and frightened hiding in the shadows among the broken arcade machines and dusty boxes of spare parts. "Hello?" I whisper, my voice barely audible over the hum of the vending machines, but the breathing stops immediately, replaced by a silence so complete it makes my ears ring. I push the door open wider, letting the fluorescent light from the main arcade spill into the cramped space, and that's when I see him, a boy who can't be more than 8 or 9 years old, curled up behind a stack of cardboard boxes like a wounded animal seeking shelter. His clothes are torn and dirty, hanging loose on his too thin frame, and when he looks up at me with wide, dark eyes that seem far too old for his face, I can smell the fear rolling off him in waves, sharp and metallic like copper pennies. "Hey there, little one," I murmur, crouching down to make myself less threatening, my knees hitting the concrete floor with a dull thud that echoes in the small space. "You don't have to be scared of me, I promise I won't hurt you." The boy doesn't respond, just watches me with those ancient eyes while his small chest rises and falls rapidly, and I can see the way his ribs show through his thin shirt, the hollow of his cheeks that speaks of too many missed meals. Something deep in my chest clenches tight, a fierce protectiveness I've never felt before surging through me like electricity, making my hands shake as I slowly reach into my pocket and pull out the small bag of tokens I'd been saving for my own lunch break games. "Are you hungry?" I ask, keeping my voice soft and gentle as I extend the tokens toward him. "These can get you some snacks from the machines out front, and I've got half a sandwich in my locker if you want it." The boy's eyes dart to the tokens, then back to my face, and I can see the war being fought behind his gaze, hunger battling caution, need fighting against instinct. When he finally reaches out with one trembling hand to take the tokens, his fingers brush against mine for just a moment, and the contact sends a jolt through me like touching a live wire, warm and electric and somehow familiar in a way that makes no sense at all. His skin is ice cold despite the warmth of the night, and I can feel the delicate bones of his hand, fragile as a bird's wing, making that protective instinct roar even louder in my chest. "What's your name, sweetheart?" I ask as he clutches the tokens against his chest like they're made of gold, but he just shakes his head, dark hair falling across his forehead in tangled waves that look like they haven't seen a brush in weeks. The sound of the front door chime echoes through the arcade, sharp and sudden in the quiet night, and the boy's entire body goes rigid with terror, his breathing turning quick and panicked as he presses himself further back into the shadows. "Chloe," a gruff voice calls from the front, and I recognize it as Officer Martinez from the local police station, but something about his tone makes my skin crawl, too interested, too eager. "You still here, girl? Got some questions about missing kids in the area." The boy's eyes go wide with pure panic, and without thinking, I step in front of him, blocking him from view as I call back, "Just finishing up the register count, give me a minute." My heart pounds against my ribs as I turn back to the boy, seeing the way he's shaking now, his small hands clenched into fists. "Stay here and stay quiet," I whisper, my voice fierce with a determination I didn't know I possessed. "I won't let anyone take you, I promise." Something flickers in his dark eyes then, a flash of surprise followed by something that might be gratitude, and when I close the storage room door behind me and walk out to face Officer Martinez with a practiced smile, I know with absolute certainty that I've just made a choice that will change everything, even if I don't understand why or how, only that this boy needs protection and I'm the only one standing between him and whatever has him so terrified. Chapter 2. 3 days have passed since I found Andrew hiding in the storage room, and he still hasn't spoken a single word to me, but his presence has become as natural as breathing, a small shadow that follows me through my shifts at the arcade with careful, silent steps. I've created a little nest for him in the corner behind the broken pinball machine where no one from the front counter can see him, complete with a pillow I brought from home and a worn blanket that smells faintly of lavender fabric softener. And watching him curl up there during my lunch breaks fills me with a warmth I didn't know I was capable of feeling. "Want to try this one?" I ask, gesturing toward the old Street Fighter cabinet that still works despite its flickering screen and sticky buttons, but Andrew just tilts his head and watches me with those impossibly dark eyes that seem to catalog every movement I make. When I drop a token into the slot and the familiar music starts up, something magical happens, his face transforms, lighting up with the first genuine smile I've seen from him, and suddenly he's pressing close to my side, his small hands hovering over the controls like he's afraid to touch them. The scent that clings to him is strange, something wild and earthy like pine needles and rain-soaked earth, completely at odds with his human appearance, but I push that odd observation aside as I guide his hands to the joystick and buttons. "Just like that, little wolf," I murmur without thinking, the endearment slipping out naturally, and Andrew's head snaps up to stare at me with an expression of such startled recognition that my breath catches in my throat. There's something ancient in his gaze now, something that speaks of secrets I'm not ready to understand, but before I can analyze it further, the front door chimes again and I look up to see a man I've never encountered before standing just inside the entrance. He's tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair that looks like he's been running his hands through it, wearing jeans and a black t-shirt that stretches across his chest in a way that makes my mouth go dry. But it's his eyes that capture my attention, pale green like sea glass, sharp and intelligent and focused entirely on me with an intensity that makes my skin tingle. The scent that drifts across the arcade from his direction is intoxicating, pine and something deeper, something masculine and wild that makes my pulse quicken involuntarily, and I watch as he moves toward the row of fighting games with a predatory grace that reminds me of the nature documentaries I used to watch as a child. Andrew has gone completely still beside me, his small body pressed against my leg like he's seeking protection, and when I glance down at him, I'm startled to see that his eyes are fixed on the stranger with a look of desperate hope that makes my chest ache. "It's okay, sweetheart," I whisper, my hand finding its way to his shoulder in a gesture that feels as natural as breathing, and the stranger's head turns toward us at the sound of my voice, those pale green eyes locking onto mine across the space between us with an impact that steals the air from my lungs. He doesn't approach us directly, instead feeding tokens into the machine 2 spots down from ours, but I can feel his attention like a physical weight, warm and electric and strangely comforting in a way that doesn't make sense given that he's a complete stranger. Andrew relaxes slightly against my side, his breathing evening out as he watches the man play, and I notice the way the stranger's movements are controlled and precise, like he's holding back tremendous strength, like he's afraid of breaking something fragile. "Good reflexes," the stranger says suddenly, his voice low and rough like aged whiskey, and it takes me a moment to realize he's talking about Andrew, who has been unconsciously mimicking the fighting moves on our screen. Natural fighter instincts. The words send a chill down my spine for reasons I can't explain, but Andrew straightens up with pride, his small chest puffing out at the compliment, and when he glances up at me with excitement dancing in his dark eyes, I find myself smiling despite the strange undercurrents swirling through the air around us. The stranger continues to play his game, but I can feel him watching us in his peripheral vision, cataloging the way Andrew leans into my touch, the protective way I keep one hand on the boy's shoulder, the careful distance I maintain from the front windows where passing cars might glimpse us through the neon-lit glass. There's something about his presence that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, not with fear but with awareness, like every cell in my body has suddenly woken up and started paying attention to details I never noticed before, the way the fluorescent lights catch the highlights in his hair, the sound of his breathing beneath the electronic noise of the games, the faint scent of leather and something indefinably masculine that makes my stomach flutter with nervous energy.
Chapter 3. The scent hits me first when I walk into the arcade tonight. Fear, sharp and acrid, cutting through the usual blend of stale popcorn and electronic circuits like a blade through silk, and my wolf immediately goes on high alert, hackles rising beneath my skin as every instinct I possess screams that something is very, very wrong. The human girl, Chloe, is backed against a broken pinball machine with the boy pressed behind her, both of them facing 3 of my pack members who have clearly lost their minds if they think cornering a human and a pup in neutral territory is acceptable behavior. "Step away from the child," Marcus growls, his canines already elongated, the scent of aggression rolling off him in waves that make my teeth ache with the need to shift, and I can see the way Chloe's hands shake as she spreads her arms wider, making herself a bigger barrier between the threatening shifters and the terrified boy. "He doesn't belong to you, human," Jenna snarls from Marcus's left, her eyes already flashing gold with her wolf's fury. But it's the way Chloe lifts her chin in defiance, the fierce determination burning in her dark eyes despite her obvious terror, that stops my heart cold in my chest. She's protecting him. This fragile human girl is standing between 3 adult shifters and a supernatural child, without any thought for her own safety, and the courage radiating from her slight frame hits me like a physical blow, making my wolf pace frantically beneath my skin as recognition crashes through me with devastating clarity. "Mate," the word echoes through my consciousness like thunder, primal and undeniable, and suddenly I understand why I've been drawn to this place night after night, why the sight of her gentle hands guiding the boy through video games made something deep in my chest clench with possessive satisfaction. "You're making a mistake," I say quietly, stepping out of the shadows near the entrance, and all 3 pack members freeze as my alpha presence fills the small space, pressing down on them with the weight of absolute authority. "Carter," Marcus breathes, his aggression immediately dampening as he recognizes not just my voice but the danger in my tone, the promise of swift and brutal retribution if he takes one more step toward my mate. "We didn't know you were here. We were just following the boy's scent trail. He's been missing for weeks, and the council can go to hell." I interrupt, my voice dropping to a growl that makes the fluorescent lights flicker overhead, and I watch as Chloe's eyes widen in shock at the display of supernatural power, her sense shifting from fear to confusion and something that might be awe. No one touches either of them. Is that understood? The authority in my voice brooks no argument, but I can see the questions burning in Marcus's eyes, the way Jenna's nostrils flare as she scents the air and realizes what my wolf already knows, what my protective stance over these two vulnerable beings reveals about the bonds forming between us. She's human, Carter, Marcus says carefully, his voice pitched low but not low enough to escape Chloe's hearing, and I watch as understanding dawns in her intelligent eyes, pieces of a puzzle she didn't know she was solving clicking into place with startling clarity. The boy is something else entirely, something powerful, and if she's been harboring him without understanding what he is, then that makes her brave, not criminal. I snap, taking a step forward that has all three pack members immediately backing toward the door, their wolves recognizing the threat in my posture even if their human minds want to argue. Look at her, I command, my voice rough with emotions I'm only beginning to understand. Look at the way she's protecting him, the way he trusts her completely, and tell me that isn't exactly what a pup needs. Chloe's breath catches audibly behind me, and when I turn to meet her gaze, the impact of those dark eyes, confused but trusting, frightened but determined, nearly brings me to my knees with the force of everything I'm feeling. What are you? She whispers, her voice barely audible, but there's no condemnation in the question, only curiosity and a growing awareness that her world has just shifted on its axis in ways she's only beginning to comprehend. Someone who's been looking for you. I answer honestly, the words falling from my lips before I can stop them, and the way her scent sweetens with something like recognition makes my wolf purr with satisfaction deep in my chest. The sound of heavy footsteps on the sidewalk outside interrupts whatever moment we might have shared, and I curse under my breath as I recognize my uncle's distinctive gait, the deliberate weight of authority that announces Dominic's presence long before he appears in the doorway with his cold blue eyes, surveying the scene with barely concealed disgust. Nephew, he says, his voice deceptively calm as he takes in the protective way I'm standing between the pack members and the humans, the possessive tension radiating from my frame. I believe we need to discuss your recent behavior and its implications for pack security. Chapter 4. You need to understand what you've gotten yourself into. Dominic's voice cuts through the arcade's electronic humming like ice, his pale blue eyes fixed on me with the intensity of a predator evaluating prey, and I can feel Andrew trembling against my back as Carter positions himself between us and his uncle with the protective stance that makes something warm and dangerous unfurl in my chest. Humans who know our secrets don't get to walk away unchanged, girl, he continues, the endearment dripping with condescension that makes my spine straighten with defiance I didn't know I possessed. Either you forget everything you've seen here tonight, or you become our problem to solve permanently. The threat hangs in the air between us like smoke, acrid and choking, but before I can find my voice to respond, Carter's growl fills the space with a sound so primal and threatening that every hair on my body stands at attention. She's under my protection, he snarls, and there's something in his tone that speaks of ancient laws and blood oaths, power structures I don't understand but can feel pressing against my skin like electricity before a storm. Touch her and face the consequences, Uncle. I'm not bluffing about this. Dominic's laugh is cold and sharp, cutting through Carter's, threat like broken glass. Your protection, for a human who doesn't even know what she's protecting. His gaze shifts to Andrew, who has pressed himself so close to my back that I can feel his rapid heartbeat through his thin shirt. Tell her what the boy really is, Carter. Tell her why 3 packs are hunting him and what keeping him safe will cost her. The weight of secrets presses down on us all, thick and suffocating, and when I look up at Carter, I can see the war being fought behind his pale green eyes, duty battling desire, Loyalty fighting against something deeper and more primal. He's just a child, I say finally, my voice stronger than I feel. Whatever he is, whatever you all are, he's still just a scared little boy who needed help, and I won't apologize for giving it to him. Something flickers across Carter's face then, an expression of fierce pride mixed with something that looks almost like worship, and when he speaks, his voice is rough with emotion. Your grandmother knew about us, he says quietly, the words hitting me like a physical blow. Margaretchen wasn't just your grandmother, Chloe. She was our pack's human liaison for 30 years. She helped us navigate the human world while keeping our secrets safe. The arcade seems to tilt around me, fluorescent lights becoming too bright, the familiar sounds of the games turning into a cacophony that makes my head spin as everything I thought I knew about my family crumbles, like sand through my fingers. That's impossible. I breathe, but even as the words leave my mouth, I'm remembering things, the way Grandma always seemed to know when storms were coming, how she could identify any animal track in the woods behind her house, the strange visitors who would come to see her late at night and speak in hushed, urgent tones about things I was too young to understand. She left you something, Carter continues, reaching into his jacket to pull out a small, leather-bound journal that looks ancient and well-worn, its pages yellowed with age and filled with handwriting I recognize as my grandmother's careful script. Instructions, explanations, everything she wanted to tell you when you were old enough to handle the truth. My hands shake as I take the journal from him, the leather warm from his body heat and somehow familiar under my fingertips, like I've held it before in dreams I can't quite remember. She knew this day would come, Dominic says, his voice now carrying a grudging respect that wasn't there before. Knew that her bloodline would be drawn back into our world eventually, but she made us promise to let you choose your own path, to never force the knowledge on you until circumstances demanded it. Andrew's small hand finds mine, his fingers cold but steady as he squeezes gently, and when I look down at him, there's understanding in his dark eyes that seems far too old for his face, like he's been waiting for this moment as long as I've been avoiding it. The boy's more than just a shifter, Carter explains, his voice gentle now, careful, like he's afraid of shattering something fragile. He's what we call a bridgeborn, someone who can exist between worlds, and there are those who would use his abilities for their own purposes, dark purposes that would destroy everything we've built here. The weight of responsibility settles on my shoulders, like a mantle I never asked for, but somehow always knew I would wear, and as I open my grandmother's journal to the first page, her familiar handwriting swimming before my eyes through unshed tears, I understand my quiet life of counting quarters and serving pizza slices was never really my destiny at all. My dearest Chloe, the first line reads, if you are reading this, then the time has come for you to learn who you really are and what you were always meant to become.
Chapter 5. The warehouse Carter leads us to smells of dust and abandoned dreams, concrete and rust mixing with something wild and pine-fresh that I'm beginning to associate with him, and as he flicks on a single bare bulb that casts harsh shadows across the cavernous space, I can see that he's transformed this forgotten place into something resembling sanctuary. Andrew immediately gravitates toward a pile of old blankets in the corner, his small body finally relaxing for the first time since the confrontation at the arcade, and watching him curl up with the exhausted relief of someone who has been running on fear and adrenaline for far too long makes my chest ache with protective tenderness. This is where we can meet safely, Carter explains, his voice echoing slightly in the empty space, but when he turns toward me, I gasp at the sight of dark stains spreading across his white t-shirt, the fabric torn in places that reveal angry red scratches beneath. Carter, you're bleeding, I breathe, rushing toward him without thinking, my hands hovering over the wounds as my grandmother's journal falls forgotten to the concrete floor with a soft thud that seems unnaturally loud in the silence. It's nothing, he says, but I can smell the copper penny scent of blood mixed with his natural pine and leather fragrance, and when I press my palm against his chest to feel for the extent of the damage, the contact sends electricity shooting up my arm like lightning strikes. His sharp intake of breath tells me he feels it too, this strange current that seems to flow between us whenever our skin touches, and when I look up into his pale green eyes, I see something there that makes my heart race against my ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. Dominic? I ask, though I already know the answer from the guilty way Carter's gaze drops to his feet, the tension in his broad shoulders that speaks of violence recently endured. Pack law, he says simply, as if those two words explain everything, and maybe they do. Maybe in his world defying authority comes with physical consequences that I'm only beginning to understand. Let me help you, I whisper, my voice barely audible over the sound of our combined breathing, and when he nods, something passes between us that feels like a promise, a crossing of some invisible line that can never be uncrossed. I guide him to sit on an overturned crate, my hands surprisingly steady as I help him pull the ruined shirt over his head, and the sight of his bare chest, broad and muscled and marked with fresh wounds that speak of claws and fury, steals the breath from my lungs in a way that has nothing to do with the violence and everything to do with the beauty of him. I don't have any medical supplies, I murmur, but my hands seem to know what to do anyway, fingers tracing the edges of the scratches with a gentleness that makes him shiver beneath my touch, and I watch in fascination as his breathing deepens, becomes more controlled, like my proximity is somehow soothing the pain. You don't need them, he says, his voice rough and low, and there's something in his tone that makes me look up to meet his gaze, something vulnerable and wondering that transforms his face from merely handsome to absolutely devastating. Your touch is enough, somehow it's enough. The admission hangs between us like a bridge I'm not sure I'm ready to cross, but my hands continue their careful exploration of his injuries, mapping the hard planes of his chest and the subtle tremor that runs through his muscles at my touch. And I realize that somewhere in the space between arcade games and abandoned warehouses, between threatening pack members and protective growls, something profound has shifted between us. I can feel your wolf, I whisper, the words falling from my lips without conscious thought, and his eyes widen with something that might be shock or recognition or both. Even though I don't really understand what that means, I can feel something wild and powerful just beneath your skin, and it doesn't frighten me the way it probably should. Carter's hand comes up to cover mine where it rests against his chest, his palm warm and slightly rough from whatever work occupies his days, and the simple contact sends heat spiraling through my body in ways that make me grateful for the dim lighting that hides the flush I can feel spreading across my cheeks. Most humans can't sense that, he tells me, his thumb tracing gentle circles across my knuckles. Most humans look at us and see only what we want them to see, but you. His words trail off as he searches my face for something I'm not sure either of us understands yet, but the intensity of his gaze makes me feel like he's seeing straight through to my soul, cataloging secrets I didn't know I was keeping. Andrew stirs in his corner, making a soft sound in his sleep, and the reminder of why we're here, why Carter risked his uncle's wrath to protect us both, brings reality crashing back like cold water over heated skin. Chapter 6. The metallic taste of fear fills my mouth as I watch three unfamiliar figures circle the arcade's perimeter through the security cameras Carter installed last week, their movements too fluid and predatory to be human, and I know with bone-deep certainty that they've come for Andrew. Stay behind the counter, I whisper to the boy, my voice steadier than I have any right to expect as I reach for the modified pepper spray Carter gave me. Not that ordinary pepper spray would do much against shifters, but this version contains wolfsbane extract that should at least slow them down long enough for help to arrive. Andrew's dark eyes meet mine through the gap beneath the register, and there's something ancient and knowing in his gaze that reminds me he's far more than the frightened child I first found hiding among broken pinball machines. Something powerful stirring beneath his fragile human appearance that makes the air around us hum with barely contained energy. "I won't let them take you, I promise," and the words carry a weight that surprises me, a fierce determination that seems to rise from some primal place deep in my chest where my grandmother's legacy lives alongside instincts I'm only beginning to understand. The front door chime signals their entry, but instead of the casual customers I usually serve, these three move with the coordinated precision of a hunting pack, their nostrils flaring as they follow Andrew's scent trail toward the counter where we're hidden. "We know you're here, little wolf," the leader calls, his voice carrying an accent I can't place but don't like, something that speaks of violence and dark intentions that make my skin crawl with revulsion. "Come quietly and the human won't get hurt, resist and we'll make her death slow and entertaining." The threat against my life barely registers because all I can focus on is the way Andrew's small body has gone rigid with terror, the scent of his fear so sharp and acidic that it burns my nostrils, and suddenly I'm moving before conscious thought can stop me, rising from behind the counter with the pepper spray held steady in both hands. "You'll have to go through me first," I announce, my voice carrying across the arcade with more authority than a 22-year-old pizza server has any right to possess, and the surprise that flickers across the lead shifter's face tells me he wasn't expecting resistance from a mere human. My grandmother's journal lies open on the floor behind me, its pages scattered by our frantic retreat, and somehow the sight of her careful handwriting gives me strength. Reminds me that I come from a line of women who stood between the supernatural world and those who needed protection, women who didn't back down when darkness came calling. "Brave little mouse," he sneers, but there's wariness in his tone now, something in my posture or scent that's giving him pause, and I remember Carter's lessons about using my environment to my advantage, about thinking 3 moves ahead like the strategy games Andrew loves to play. The arcade's layout becomes a chessboard in my mind, each machine and obstacle a piece I can use to control their movement, and when the first shifter lunges toward me with inhuman speed, I'm already diving behind the air hockey table, using its bulk to shield me while I trigger the fire suppression system Carter showed me how to override. Water and foam cascade from the ceiling sprinklers, turning the floor slick and treacherous, and the disorienting spray gives me the seconds I need to activate the arcade sound system at full volume, filling the space with a cacophony of electronic noise that should mask Andrew's location from their supernatural hearing. The second shifter attempts to circle around to my left, but I'm ready for him, using the reflection in the pinball machine's glass to track his movement while I fumble for the emergency lighting controls that will strobe the overhead fluorescents and further disorient their enhanced vision. "Clever," the leader admits, his voice now holding a note of genuine respect that wasn't there before, but when he starts to advance again, Andrew stands up from behind the counter, and the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees in an instant. The lights flicker and spark, arcade machines going haywire as power surges through their circuits, and I watch in amazement as Andrew's dark eyes begin to glow with an inner light that seems to pull shadows toward him like living things, his small form radiating a presence that makes every instinct in my body scream both protection and reverence. "Leave us alone," Andrew speaks for the first time since I found him, his voice carrying harmonics that human throats shouldn't be able to produce, and the 3 intruders actually take a step backward, their confident predatory stance faltering in the face of power they clearly weren't expecting from someone so young. The sound of motorcycle engines roaring to life outside breaks the supernatural tension, and relief floods through me as Carter's familiar scent reaches my nose even through the chaos of water and ozone and fear, his presence filling the doorway like avenging thunder as he takes in the scene with pale green eyes that have gone cold as winter ice. "You made a mistake coming here," he growls, and there's something in his voice that promises swift and brutal retribution, something that makes the lead intruder's face go pale with recognition of exactly what he's facing.
Chapter 7. The scent of Chloe's determination mixed with Andrew's awakening power fills my nostrils as I survey the chaos inside the arcade. 3 rival pack members backing away from what they clearly thought would be an easy extraction, and the pride that swells in my chest at seeing my mate's strategic brilliance makes my wolf preen with possessive satisfaction. She's turned this place into a fortress using nothing but arcade equipment and quick thinking, water cascading from overhead sprinklers while strobe lights disorient the intruders, and the sight of her standing protectively in front of Andrew with pepper spray clutched in steady hands makes something primal and fierce roar to life in my chest. "Marcus warned me you'd lost your mind over a human," the lead intruder says, his accent marking him as one of the Northern Territory rogues who've been sniffing around our borders for weeks. "But I didn't believe even you would be stupid enough to start a war over some pizza-serving nobody." The dismissive way he refers to Chloe sends rage coursing through my veins like liquid fire, my wolf clawing at the inside of my skin with the desperate need to shift and tear his throat out for daring to diminish the woman who's proven herself more worthy of respect than half the pack members I've known my entire life. "She's not nobody," I growl, stepping further into the arcade with predatory grace that makes all 3 intruders tense with the recognition of superior predator. "She's under my protection, which makes her more dangerous to you than you can possibly imagine." The truth of those words hits me even as I speak them, because somewhere between watching her count quarters with infinite patience and seeing her risk everything to protect a supernatural child she barely understands, Chloe Bennett has become the most important thing in my world, more vital than pack politics or territorial disputes or even my own safety. "The boy comes with us," the rogue insists, but there's less conviction in his voice now, uncertainty creeping in as he takes in the way Andrew's power is making the very air shimmer with otherworldly energy, the way Chloe stands unwavering despite facing creatures that could tear her apart without breaking a sweat. "Over my dead body," Chloe says before I can respond, her voice carrying an authority that seems to surprise even her, and when she glances back at me, the trust shining in her dark eyes nearly brings me to my knees with its intensity. The bond between us pulses like a living thing, mate recognition singing through my bloodstream with such force that it's a wonder the entire room can't hear it, and I realize that somehow, in the space of protecting this one precious child, we've become a unit, a team that functions with the kind of seamless coordination that usually takes years to develop. "You have no idea what you're protecting," the rogue tries again, desperation creeping into his tone as he realizes this simple extraction has become infinitely more complicated. "That child is more dangerous than you know. His power could tear holes between worlds if he's not properly controlled." The admission tells me more than he probably intended, confirms suspicions about Andrew's true nature that I've been harboring since the night I first caught his scent, and when I catch Chloe's eye, I can see the same realization dawning in her expression, the understanding that we're not just protecting an ordinary shifter child, but something far more precious and perilous. "Then it's a good thing he's got us to help him learn control," she says, and there's something in her tone that speaks of absolute conviction, a determination that makes my chest swell with an emotion too complex and overwhelming to name. The sound of approaching sirens cuts through the tension, and I can't help but smile at the realization that my clever mate has somehow managed to involve human authorities in what should have been a purely supernatural conflict, adding another layer of complication that will force the rogues to retreat or risk exposure. This isn't over, the lead intruder snarls, but he's already backing toward the rear exit, his companions following with the reluctant recognition that they have been outmaneuvered by a human girl and a protective alpha who's willing to burn the world down to keep her safe. No, I agree, stepping closer to Chloe until I can smell the adrenaline and triumph radiating from her skin like the sweetest perfume. It's not, but next time you'll think twice before threatening what's mine. The possessive declaration hangs in the air between us like a promise and a claim, and when Chloe looks up at me with something that might be wonder or might be the beginning of something deeper, I know that whatever comes next, whatever challenges the pack, or my uncle, or the wider supernatural community might throw at us, we'll face them together as the formidable team we've somehow become.
Chapter 8. The emergency lighting casts everything in hellish red shadows as more shifters pour through every entrance of the arcade, their coordinated attack making it clear that the three rogues from earlier were just a scouting party for something much larger and more dangerous. "Stay close to me," Carter commands, his voice carrying the rough edge of barely controlled transformation as his eyes flash between human green and wolf gold, and I can feel the heat radiating from his skin as his body fights the urge to shift in the confined space filled with innocent human witnesses who can't know what they're really seeing. Andrew has positioned himself behind the vintage Pac-Man machine, his small hands pressed against its sides as electricity arcs between his fingers, every screen in the arcade flickering and distorting as his power surges through the building's electrical system like a living thing seeking outlets for its overwhelming energy. They're not here to take him anymore, I realize with growing horror as I watch the lead shifter's claws extend fully, his face already partially transformed into something that's more beast than man. They're here to eliminate the threat he represents. The weight of that understanding settles on my shoulders like lead, because somewhere in the chaos of protective instincts and mate bonds and supernatural politics, I've become responsible not just for Andrew's safety but for preventing a massacre that could expose the entire shifter world to human authorities who would never understand or accept what they were witnessing. "The back exit," Carter says, his voice strained as he holds his human form through sheer willpower, but even as the words leave his mouth, shadows detach themselves from the rear hallway, more enemies cutting off our escape route with military precision that speaks of planning and coordination far beyond what simple rogues should possess, making me wonder just how long they've been watching us, studying our patterns and weaknesses. We're surrounded, I breathe, my hand finding the modified pepper spray in my pocket, though I know it won't be enough against this many attackers, not when they're clearly willing to kill anyone who stands between them and Andrew, their sense heavy with the metallic tang of violence and bloodlust that makes every human instinct scream run even as my grandmother's legacy demands I stand and fight. The arcade becomes a battlefield as Carter finally lets his control slip, his form blurring and shifting in ways that should be impossible, bones lengthening and reshaping as he becomes something caught between human and wolf, something perfectly designed for violence and protection, and watching him transform to defend us sends a primal thrill through my body that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the mate bond singing in recognition of his strength. "Close your eyes," Andrew whispers, but his voice carries across the entire space despite its softness, harmonics that make every piece of electronic equipment in the building respond to his call like an orchestra tuning to the same impossible frequency. And suddenly I understand what he's planning to do, the power building around him so intense that the very air tastes of copper and ozone and something that might be magic. The lights explode outward in a cascade of sparks and broken glass, plunging us into darkness broken only by the eerie glow emanating from Andrew's skin as his power builds to dangerous levels. Electricity dancing across every surface like captured lightning seeking release, and I can feel the hair on my arms standing on end as the energy level in the room climbs towards something that feels like it could tear reality apart at the seams. Now, Carter roars, and suddenly we're moving as one unit, his enhanced senses guiding us through the chaos while I follow the warmth of his body and Andrew stays pressed between us, his power creating a barrier of crackling energy that makes the attacking shifters hesitate just long enough for us to reach the relative safety of the storage room where this all began weeks ago with a frightened child hiding among broken dreams. They'll regroup, Carter pants, his form already shifting back toward human as the immediate threat recedes, but I can see the exhaustion in his movements, the cost of maintaining partial transformation for extended periods written in the tension of his shoulders and the sharp edge of his breathing that speaks of reserves pushed far beyond their limits. The authorities will be here soon, I say, checking my phone to confirm that the silent alarm I triggered is still broadcasting our location to every emergency service in the city, but I don't think that's going to stop them this time, not when they're this desperate. The sound of systematic destruction echoes from the main arcade as our attackers tear through the building, looking for hidden passages or alternative routes to our position. And I know with sinking certainty that our temporary sanctuary won't hold for long against determined supernatural predators who have nothing left to lose. There's another way, Andrew says, his young voice carrying weight that seems to press against my eardrums, and when I look down at him, his dark eyes are swirling with power that makes the air around us thick and electric. But you have to trust me completely, both of you. Carter and I exchange a look that communicates volumes without words, the bond between us humming with shared understanding and absolute faith, and when I nod, it's not just agreement but surrender to whatever Andrew needs to do to keep us all alive. Together, I whisper, reaching out to take both their hands in mine, and the moment our skin connects, power flows between us like a circuit completing. Andrew's supernatural abilities amplified by Carter's wolf strength and somehow grounded by my human determination, creating something none of us could achieve alone.
Chapter 9. The Packhouse meeting hall has never felt smaller than it does right now, with every alpha and elder from the surrounding territories crammed into the space that suddenly reeks of tension and barely controlled aggression. Their combined sense creating a miasma of power politics and ancient grudges that makes my wolf pace restlessly beneath my skin. This ends tonight, Dominic announces from his position at the head of the long oak table, his pale blue eyes fixed on me with the kind of cold fury that promises retribution. Either you renounce this human obsession and fulfill your duties to the pack, or you forfeit your right to lead and face the consequences of your choices. The ultimatum hangs in the air like a blade poised to fall, but all I can think about is Chloe's face when I left her and Andrew at the safe house 3 hours ago. The way her dark eyes searched mine for promises I wasn't sure I could keep, the fierce protectiveness that blazed in her expression when she told me to come back to them both, because they would be waiting. My choice was made the moment I recognized her as my mate. I say, my voice carrying across the crowded room with the kind of authority that makes several of the visiting alphas sit up straighter, their wolves responding to the dominance of my tone, even as their human minds question my sanity for challenging centuries of tradition. Chloe Bennett is under my protection, as is the child, and anyone who threatens them threatens me personally. The murmur that ripples through the assembled shifters carries notes of shock and outrage, because what I'm essentially declaring is my willingness to go to war against my own kind for the sake of a human woman and a supernatural child whose power levels make everyone in this room nervous. She's human. Elder Morrison spits from his seat near the window, his weathered face twisted with the kind of disgust that speaks of centuries-old prejudices deeply ingrained in the very foundation of our society. Humans are weak, fragile things that break under the pressure of our world, and you would risk everything we've built for one female who doesn't even understand what she's gotten herself into. The dismissive way he refers to Chloe sends rage coursing through my veins like molten metal, because these fools have no idea what they're talking about, no concept of the strength I've witnessed in her gentle hands, or the courage that blazes in her heart when she's protecting someone she loves, the way she faced down trained killers without flinching. Weak. I laugh, the sound sharp and bitter in the heavy air thick with the scent of too many dominant predators in one confined space. You obviously haven't seen her turn an arcade into a fortress using nothing but quick thinking and determination. Haven't watched her stand between a supernatural child and 3 adult shifters without flinching. Haven't felt the power that radiates from her when she's channeling her grandmother's legacy and protecting what matters most to her. The mention of Margaret Chen's name sends a visible ripple through the room, because even the most traditional among them remember her contributions to pack security, the way she helped us navigate the human world while keeping our secrets safe for 3 decades, earning respect that few humans have ever achieved in our community. The grandmother was useful. Dominic concedes with grudging respect that doesn't reach his eyes. But the girl is untested, unproven, and her connection to the bridge-born child makes her a liability we cannot afford to ignore, especially when other packs are already questioning our judgment and stability. The political calculations behind his words are transparent. The way he's positioning this as a matter of pack security rather than personal preference, but I can see through the facade to the fear beneath, the terror that my choice to follow my heart rather than duty will somehow weaken his authority over the younger generation and inspire others to challenge the old ways. Then test her. I challenge, rising from my chair with predatory grace that makes the tension in the room spike dangerously, as every wolf present recognizes the threat display. Put her through whatever trials you think necessary to prove her worth, but understand that she faces them as my mate, with all the protection and support that entails, and any harm that comes to her will be answered in blood. The silence that follows my declaration is so complete that I can hear the old building's wooden bones creaking in the night wind, every shifter in the room processing the implications of what I've just proposed, the unprecedented nature of a human undergoing pack trials without the benefit of supernatural abilities to level the playing field against challenges designed for our kind. And if she fails? Elder Morrison asks, his voice carrying the weight of challenge and threat in equal measure, leaning forward in his chair like a vulture sensing weakness. If she proves as weak and useless as we expect, what then, young Alpha? The question hangs between us like a gauntlet thrown down, and when I meet his gaze with the full force of my alpha authority, I can see him struggling not to look away from the promise of violence in my eyes, the absolute certainty that I will destroy anyone who harms what belongs to me. She won't fail. I state with absolute conviction that resonates through my bones and into my voice, because I've seen what Chloe is capable of when she's fighting for something she loves, Witnessed the transformation that comes over her when her protective instincts are engaged. Felt the power that flows through her when she's connected to both Andrew and me in moments of crisis. But if somehow the impossible happens, and she does, then I'll accept exile and take both her and the boy far from here, where your narrow-minded traditions can't touch any of us, and you can explain to the pack why you drove away their future alpha for the sake of pride.
Chapter 10. 6 months later, the familiar electronic symphony of arcade games fills the air as I watch Andrew carefully explain the controls of Street Fighter to a young girl whose parents hover nearby with the kind of nervous energy that comes from knowing your child is about to interact with something supernatural but being determined to create a normal childhood anyway. Remember, the dragon punch is quarter circle forward, down, down forward, punch, he says with the patience of someone far older than his apparent years, and I can't help but smile at how much he's grown since that night I found him hiding in the storage room. No longer the terrified waif but a confident teacher who's learned to control his abilities under Carter's guidance while maintaining the sweet gentleness that first captured my heart. The afternoon crowd is a mix of human families and shifter children, all playing together in the neutral territory I've created here at Pixel Palace, the arcade reborn from its ashes as something unprecedented in the supernatural community, a place where both worlds can coexist openly without fear or pretense, where the scent of fresh popcorn mingles with the wild pine essence of shapeshifters and somehow creates harmony instead of chaos. Luna Chloe, Marcus says as he approaches my position behind the snack counter, using the title that still makes me do a double take even though I've been pack alpha female for 3 months now, his voice carrying the same respect he once reserved for ancient bloodlines and traditional authority figures. The monthly supply delivery is here, and the new pinball machine from Chicago arrived this morning, the one with the custom wolf-themed artwork you commissioned. The respect in his voice is genuine now, earned through the trials that proved my worth to even the most skeptical pack members, tests of courage and wisdom and protective instincts that I somehow passed despite lacking supernatural abilities, and the memory of Dominic's grudging approval after I successfully mediated a territorial dispute between 2 rival packs still warms something deep in my chest like a banked fire. Perfect timing, I reply, wiping my hands on the custom apron Carter had made for me, black fabric embroidered with silver wolves that seems to shimmer in the neon lighting, catching the colorful reflections from the game screens in ways that make the wolves appear to move and dance. We've got the mixed families gathering tonight, and I want everything perfect for their kids, especially since we're welcoming 3 new families from the coastal territories. The monthly gatherings have become the highlight of my new life, bringing together human shifter couples and their children in a safe space where no one has to hide what they are, where love matters more than species and where the future I'm helping to build takes root one friendship at a time, creating bonds that will strengthen both communities for generations to come. The bell above the door chimes with its familiar musical note, and my heart does that familiar flutter as Carter walks in carrying takeout bags from our favorite Thai restaurant, his pale green eyes immediately finding mine across the crowded space with the kind of possessive warmth that still makes my knees weak after all this time, the mate bond singing with recognition and contentment that seems to grow stronger with each passing day. "How's my queen of the arcade?" he asks as he reaches the counter, leaning across to steal a kiss that tastes like promise and forever, his lips warm and familiar against mine while the scent of pine and leather that clings to his skin wraps around me like the most comforting embrace. Busy planning world domination, one game at a time, I tease, gesturing at the bulletin board covered with expansion plans, partnership agreements with other supernatural-friendly businesses, and photos from last month's Interpack tournament that brought together 5 different territories in friendly competition that ended with shared meals and new alliances instead of bloodshed. Andrew's been teaching combat techniques through video games, and I think we might have accidentally revolutionized supernatural education while creating the most unique after-school program in existence. Carter's laugh is rich and warm, the sound carrying across the arcade and making several pack children look up from their games with adoring expressions, because he's become as much their beloved alpha as their protector, someone who chose love over tradition and made it possible for all of us to thrive in ways that seemed impossible just months ago. Speaking of education, he says, pulling out a thick envelope with the official seal of the Supernatural Council embossed in gold wax that catches the light like captured sunlight, this arrived today, the final approval for our proposal to establish Pixel Palace as an official neutral zone sanctuary, complete with legal protections that extend to every human and shifter who enters these doors. The weight of that achievement settles over me like a warm blanket, because it represents everything we've fought for, recognition that humans and shifters can coexist not just peacefully but beautifully, that love doesn't recognize species boundaries, and that sometimes the most unlikely people can change an entire world by refusing to accept that things have to stay the way they've always been. We did it, I breathe, my voice thick with emotion as I take the document with trembling hands, the parchment feeling substantial and real beneath my fingertips, official stamps and signatures that transform our dream into legally protected reality. No, he corrects gently, his hand covering mine where it rests on the counter, warm and calloused from the physical work of building our sanctuary. You did it, brave girl. You made this dream real through sheer determination and that beautiful heart that sees potential where others see problems, that refuses to give up even when the odds seem impossible. The endearment still makes me melt, especially when he says it with that particular tone that speaks of pride and possession and love so deep it sometimes takes my breath away, and as I lean into his warmth, surrounded by the sounds of laughter and electronic music and children playing without fear, I know that this moment, this life we've created from the ashes of loneliness and tradition, is worth every risk we took to get here, every challenge we faced, every moment of doubt we conquered. Together. Thanks for sticking with me till the end. Like, subscribe, and let me know, how do you like my new visuals? See you in the next chapter, my beloved listeners.